Russia's war against Ukraine has caused collateral damage to water delivery and sewage systems in Ukraine. Some of that destruction appears to have been intentional. The BBC investigated accusations that Russian forces sabotaged a water supply pipeline in the southern Ukrainian city of Mykolaiv.
This is the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesday webcast for November 2nd, 2022.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back again, beloved community, with another installment of the Water Wednesdays webcast by the People's Water Board Coalition. And today we are here as hosts to just give you the current topics of what's going on and highlight all the issues that we found out about going on locally as well as globally surrounding water and water insecure issues. I'm here today as usual with my co-host, Valerie Jean Blakely. Our tech guy, Lou Novak, is behind the scenes as always. And we really hope that you take this information, stock it away, pay attention to what's going on in your community and abroad, and find out how you can get involved and what you can do to help secure that everyone achieves the right to clean, accessible, affordable water, whether it's in your community, in your city, in your state, or in your country or the world. There's a place for everyone to get in and fit in. Thank you so much. Thanks, Val, for being here with me on this journey.
It's always such an important show to when we're talking about stuff locally and globally, in my perspective, because I don't think people understand all of how everything's really, really connected. So we figured we'd talk today global things, and we're going to go ahead and get started with you, Nicole. You've got the last few weeks we've had some extraordinary guests who have been through really, really hard things, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the local stuff first, and then we'll jump into the global. So take it away.
Thank you. Well, as my co-host said, over the past few weeks, we've had some extraordinary guests who have brought some issues, some of which we already were aware of, and some of which we were just finding out about, to our attention and to the public's attention. And it was devastating to hear some of the things that were going on relating to water. I do recall one of the first things that struck my attention was we had a inmate from a Michigan prison come on and talk about the water issues in the prison. Now, I've always heard about how the food was horrible. I've investigated companies that contract out to Michigan prisons about food, but I did not know that they were dealing with the water issues that were that devastating, with issues of having just completely unclean, unsanitized, and non-contaminated water. That they don't have that. They have water full of lead, full of other bacteria, and it's making prisoners sick.
Right, and they had their wells were contaminated, and that's why they started looking into it. Their wells were contaminated by all of the runoff, because they're surrounded by like cornfields and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
it's the agricultural runoff, yes,
like that. And they found in the nitrate, there's nitrates and all kinds of stuff they found in their water, right?
Absolutely.
And then so they switched off of that to a different system, to the cold water system, and then ended up not testing the whole prison, and the water was coming out brown.
Sounds very familiar to Flint.
Yeah.
With water coming out brown. And I'm pretty sure that it contained lead, and a lot of prisoners probably got excess lead because that water was also utilized for cooking. And I'm pretty sure some of the foods they cooked were actually boiled and things of that nature, which we both know concentrates the lead in the water instead of dispelling the lead from the water. So that was frightening to hear.
Yeah, it was really it was really hard to listen to his story because it's so hard. They're stuck with it. They can't go out and buy bottled water. They have to,
Right.
and
And
that
then
the
yeah,
them, and it was a heartbreaking story indeed.
especially since we also know that oftentimes prisoners do not get treated humanely to start with, whether they have access to clean water or not, because people feel like if you make a mistake, that being treated inhumanely is actually part of the punishment, and it's not. And so that was a definite story that we will be following up on further. Another local piece was from right here in Detroit, which was with the current issue with DWSD creating what they call an affordability plan, which we've actually discovered is like based on a tiered block water rationing program called the Lifeline program. And they're working to try to get people to sign up for this program. But this program is a recipe for disaster, people. You will not be able to function on this program according to the way they have it set up. It is not conducive to family households, especially since the pandemic, which is actually still going on, where
Right.
many families have lost their homes. People are residing together. Just the fact that the average family that I know in my community, for instance, there's no household in my community that has 2 or maybe 3 people in it. The majority of the households have at least 4 to 6 people or more in it.
Yeah, most people, even if you only had 3, you're going to go over what they're allotted.
Yeah.
Even if you only have, we figured it out. We did the math, and you're going to go over that no matter what. And people aren't out just watering their grass and washing their cars and things like that. People already conserve, and to ask people to conserve more is really, really disturbing in a lot of ways. We want a water affordability plan, and we're glad.
We have a water affordability plan.
Yeah, but it has to be right. And it has to relieve some of the harm that people have been experiencing for years and years and years. Water has been an issue. Affordability problems in Detroit have been an issue for years and years and years. So it's just, let's get it right. Let's get a water affordability plan. Let's fight for a water affordability plan that will make sure that nobody gets their water shut off.
Absolutely.
We have to.
Along with that also is, as citizens and residents, we have to demand accuracy with records within the water department, as well as transparency, because a lot of issues that people have faced that have caused irrevocable harm has simply been because the department didn't do their due diligence with accounts and whatnot. I can attest to that myself, where I was paying my water bill and wondering why it continued to grow, and ended up discovering from my own investigation that someone in a previous address where the water department themselves insured me the water would no longer be in my name, they left it in my name, and these people were in the house unbeknownst to the owner and were just using water. And there was no, there was no reparation for that at all.
They're pretty blatant about just saying, no, even if you FOIA them, they're pretty blatant about being like, no, we don't have that. We don't have those numbers, even though they have numbers. Transparency isn't their strong suit. And they know it. That's why they're not trusted people in the room, right? That's why we're the trusted people in the room, and they can't roll out this plan without us saying, yes, it's a good plan, and having our help and our advocacy to actually get it done. Mm-hmm. They can't do it,
Definitely. It's a recipe for disaster unless you have the people at the table that are most impacted from that plan or whatever you're creating, and the advocates that work with them.
Right.
It will not be successful any other way.
And before we move on to the global stuff, I really want to, like, we had a lot of guests on, a handful of guests in the last couple of months talking about PFAS. And I mean, we had Monty Bolus from the Camp Grayling expansion talking about how things are already poisoned and they want to do this expansion. And then we talked to Kathy. I don't want to mess up her last name, so I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, they talked about her how PFAS directly impacted her and the residents
and her entire community, and how she's fighting back. Created a whole org, and she's doing these things. Just extraordinary people who have been harmed. Decided they were, and that's, as Michiganders, that's what we do, right?
And I'm glad you brought up the PFAS at Camp Grayling in particular, because that kind of ties into what's going on globally. Because once again, we're seeing the military and the war economy being prioritized over citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're asking for 162,000 acres to expand when they've already caused so much damage with the land that they have now, which is actually one of the biggest installations in the contingent United States.
That's right. That's right.
Pretty much want to double it almost.
Better, yeah. It's and the weapons that they're going to be testing. I mean, they're supposed, there are these new kinds of weapons, and
so we don't even know what kind of damage they could cause.
Yeah, and the people there are already saying, "Hey, it's already contaminated and bad. This, these things are happening." So it feels, like really genocidal in a way. It really does.
It's no feeling. That's actually what it is. Because here's my thing. We have seen, if anybody has ever been into learning about the military or the background of capitalism in this country, we've seen how these big industries that produce weapons and chemicals and things of that nature for the military, how they do all of this testing, and they usually they have found areas where there's less population, but for some reason in recent times, it's been going into more populated areas. But what they do is they do this testing, and you find out a decade later, 20 years later, oh, that weapon they were testing or that chemical they were testing has all of these side effects, instead of during thorough investigations when you decide to utilize those products to see what their reaction could be on the environment or on the community that lives in that environment. Because people, especially people who live in poverty and people of color, are deemed dispensable in this country.
The military complex is the biggest contributor to climate change on the planet.
Absolutely.
It's the violent entity on the planet, and it is the biggest contributor to climate change on the planet.
And it's so funny that you brought that up.
We're talking about access to water, right? A lot of people aren't have access to water because of climate change, and they contribute in that way too. So not only do they just pollute, but they contribute, they're the largest contributor to climate change.
And it's so funny that you said that before we move to global. Just a historical tidbit to just show you how long the war economy, even before it was technically an economy, contributed to environmental change. They said back in the ancient times in Mongolia that Genghis Khan killed so many people that he changed the climate on the earth.
Yeah.
And that's without the modern technology. So imagine what our militaries are capable of doing now with all of these
They're trying to get
modernized weapons.
Right. That's what this testing is about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yesterday was a big day in water news, but World Health Organization came out and said 2 billion people on the planet live without access to safe water, and the majority of them are sub-Saharan Africa. And that's where climate change is just running a complete and total muck. I mean, even though it is all over the globe, it really, really is. And it just seemed like if you don't sit right up and hear that and it not, compel you to do something every day to save our water and protect our water and make sure people have access to clean, safe water or affordable, safe water. I don't know what will. That's a call to action to me, 2 billion people.
And then hearing that, you're thinking billion with a B, first of all. I don't think anybody has ever seen with their naked eye anything that calculated
a billion.
Right. Like I haven't seen 2 billion flowers in one place at one time.
You're talking about
anything.
You're talking about devastating whole communities all over the globe.
Yeah.
And that's just,
And I would venture to tell our viewers that 2 billion is probably on the low. That's lowballing it.
That's what we know.
Because there's always people that you don't have access. And I think when I think of sub-Saharan Africa, some of the tribes that don't even come in contact with people at all, they may be suffering in silence.
It's a low number because they don't have access to that many people. And you got how many people are sitting in Detroit as we speak without access to water that we don't even know about. And
Absolutely.
we look. The other thing that kind of yesterday took the air out of my sails, I guess, I don't know, took my breath away. Learning about well, I always knew that I learned years ago that blowing up the water and getting rid of the water was the first act of war. And that's what they would do. What Israel was doing in Palestine when I first started learning about it. They had taken waterways so that they didn't have access to water. Well, they started blowing up water pipes in Ukraine, and it literally 500,000 people are without water because of the war. 500,000 people can't drink because of that, because they decided that was a good tactic, that you would blow up water lines. And, once you blow up water lines, that takes years to fix. That's not something that once they vacate the premises, they can fix, or even once they get access to that land. Do you know how long it's going to take you to fix it? Like, it seems so counterproductive to me, but it is one of the first act of wars. It's one of the saddest tactics, most inhumane tactics possible that could ever be used. And
their most important natural resource.
Like, just that gives you no access. If you don't have access to water within 3 days, you're going to die.
And your charge also starts a chain reaction because you need water to grow and plant food.
Everything.
It's just the end all to be all. I still haven't even comprehended why Russia is even attacking the Ukraine.
Right. Well, we're not going to slice into that piece of pie, but anyway, we should have Russ Blunt come on and explain it to us so we
definitely
that we can so that we can report on it, right? Because he is brilliant at explaining it and it being truthful. And then so we've found out yesterday that they started the Mississippi River is disappearing. And I found out yesterday that they started dredging the canals because they couldn't get any traffic to get resources to people. There's a lot of traffic that delivers resources and goods on the Mississippi River. So they decided, since the water was so low, that they would start dredging it. And if that don't make you stand up and say, like these are really, really serious.
Can you do me a favor?
And then me?
Can you repeat the first part of that sentence? You said the Mississippi is what?
It's disappearing.
Exactly. I really want our viewers to realize how the depth of that. The mighty as it's known, mighty Mississippi, is disappearing.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
runs through several states down to the Gulf
And
of
to
Mexico.
to people, to deliver, things to people, deliver food and all kinds of things. So they started dredging it yesterday, which it comes to, I mean, in March of 2023, the UN is hosting a global water conference, the first one in 50 years. Now, the call for this conference really is like, they're calling it a decade of action, the next decade of action to protect water and to save our water. And I think that this culmination of everything, especially the stuff, everything around the globe, from Michigan to sub-Saharan Africa, everything around the globe is in such dire state that they're like, we have got to get together in a place where everybody can come and we can really figure this out strategically. And that to me it's a culmination of all of these things. And I'm glad to see it's happening. It's sad that it has to happen, but I'm glad to see it's happening. And we're going to keep people abreast on this and what it looks like. And we're hoping that we can figure out a way to report it in real time to you all here.
It makes me sad and it makes me angry, though. It makes me sad that this call to action has to happen with the UN, but it also makes me angry that, because I still feel, even though this is a step, I still feel like this should have happened sooner.
Sure. Wait till the very last minute when everything's in so much disarray and discombobulated and chaos to actually, we need a decade of action. You could have did better, UN. You could have did better.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. So we want to end this call with a call to action. Another call to action for Camp Grayling expansion. We're asking folks to call or email. Now this information is, I'm going to read it to you, but this information is going to be in the comments down below. As soon as I end the show, I'll go put them in the comments down below. So we want you to call or email the director of DNR, Michigan DNR, Dan Eckinger. I hope I'm not killing his name, but that's the way I think it's pronounced.
And the Department of Natural Resources for people who don't know the abbreviation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the phone number is 810-743-2347. 810-743-2347. And then the email is DNR campgrayling@michigan.gov. And all of that's going to be in the comment section. So if you didn't get it, give me a couple minutes. When we end the show, I'll get it in there so that you can just click on it and send an email or copy paste, send an email or call him immediately and tell him that the Camp Grayling expansion is bad for the people, the planet, the entire planet. Not just the people that are going to be directly impacted right there, but because this military weaponry will absolutely push through climate change to a place where we'll never be able to go back. And so it's
one quick point about that before we go. Also, I want our viewers to understand that this 162,000 acre expansion is not necessarily to benefit our military. Also, it's also because they lease out property to private corporations
to test nasty real testing. Yeah, to test real nasty stuff.
That's what they did.
Again, we got to come together and do this and demand that they stop this expansion. It's at this point in time, it's a global responsibility for us to do this because this will affect everybody globally, that expansion. And there's a lot of stuff we don't know. There's a lot of nasty, bad stuff we don't know. So I'm going to wrap it up with that. Nicole, thank you so much for always for showing up with me every Wednesday. Have these really difficult conversations and get them out to our listeners. We ask that you share these Water Wednesdays out to especially communities that are most impacted. to your neighborhood. Start having these local conversations and these global conversations everywhere that you are. It really is going to take all of us to combat climate change and the fact that our water is being ruined, and all of those things. And so thank you all for showing up every week with us, and please look out for each other. Call on your friends and your family and your neighbors, and see if there's any way that you could all come together and take care of each other in these moments, and try to stay afloat. Bye.